The first rays of the morning sun spilled over the sleepy town like melted gold, softening the edges of cracked pavements and tired storefronts. On the corner of Willow Street stood a bus stop bench, weathered from years of restless commuters. It was there, every morning at exactly 7:15, that Daniel arrived with his 7-year-old daughter, Emma. His clothes were simple, often the same faded jacket and worn shoes, but his smile was genuine, the kind that carried both exhaustion and hope. Life hadn't given him much, yet he gave Emma everything he could, his time, his warmth, his unwavering devotion. That morning, as Emma skipped circles around the bench, giggling at pigeons pecking at crumbs, Daniel sat with a thermos of cheap coffee warming his hands. His job at the mechanic's shop didn't pay much, but it was honest work. He often told Emma, "We may not have everything, but we have each other, and that's enough." He believed it, even when his stomach tightened with the worry of overdue rent and unpaid bills. Across the street, hidden behind the tinted glass of a sleek black car, sat Isabella Monroe. To the world, she was a billionaire heiress, daughter of one of the richest men in the country, owner of vast companies and unimaginable wealth. Yet, despite her fortune, her life often felt like a cage. She was surrounded by luxury but starved of authenticity, suffocated by endless meetings, superficial friendships, and the weight of expectations she never asked for. That morning, she had asked her driver to take a detour through town, just to breathe air that didn't smell of boardrooms and contracts. As the car slowed at the stoplight, Isabella's gaze wandered, and that was when she saw them. The father and daughter on the bench. The little girl with pigtails laughing freely, the father smiling as though his world was whole, despite his obvious hardships. It stirred something in Isabella's chest, a longing she couldn't name. For reasons she couldn't explain, she rolled down her window, leaned slightly out, and with a spontaneous impulse, she waved. Daniel blinked in surprise. Strangers rarely waved at him, let alone from shiny cars that looked like they belonged in another world. For a split second, he wondered if she had mistaken him for someone else. But then, catching the warmth in her eyes, he smiled and waved back. It was a simple gesture, nothing more than a few seconds, yet it was enough to shift something deep inside Isabella. The light turned green. The car pulled away. Daniel shook his head, amused. Funny world, huh, Emma? People waving at strangers. Emma giggled, maybe she liked your smile, Daddy. He chuckled, ruffling her hair, never imagining how true his daughter's words would turn out to be. Isabella couldn't stop thinking about that moment. Back in her towering glass office overlooking the city, surrounded by luxury, she felt an emptiness gnawing inside. That father's smile, it wasn't wealth that gave it to him. It was love. It was authenticity. It was everything she was missing. She found herself returning to Willow Street the next morning, this time alone, driving without her chauffeur. She parked a little ways down and waited. At 7:15 sharp, there he was again, Daniel with his thermos and Emma with her giggles. Isabella's heart raced. She told herself she was being foolish, billionaires didn't linger around bus stops. Yet, when Emma looked up and caught her gaze across the street, Isabella instinctively lifted her hand and waved again. This time, Emma squealed with delight and waved both arms. Daniel looked over, surprised but amused, and waved back with the same kindness. And just like that, a routine was born. Day after day, Isabella found herself detouring to that little bus stop, waving at the stranger who never asked who she was or why she was there. Sometimes she'd bring coffee from a fancy cafe and leave it discreetly on the bench before they arrived. Sometimes she'd slip small treats, muffins, a book for Emma, a pack of crayons, hoping they would never guess it was her. Daniel noticed the mysterious gifts, of course. Looks like we've got a bus stop fairy, he told Emma, laughing. Maybe someone out there cares about us more than we know. He never suspected that the elegant woman in the car across the street was behind it. He never connected her wave with the quiet kindness appearing in their lives. To him, she was just a stranger who seemed to enjoy sharing a smile in the mornings. Weeks passed, and Isabella's life began to change. Boardroom meetings no longer consumed her. Her thoughts drifted constantly to the man on the bench and the little girl with sparkling eyes. She found excuses to rearrange her schedule, just to make sure she could be there at 7:15. She began dressing more simply, wanting to look less like the billionaire the world expected and more like herself. One rainy morning, as Daniel held an umbrella over Emma while waiting for the bus, Isabella finally found the courage to cross the street. Her heart pounded as she approached. "Hi," she said softly, her voice almost trembling. "I'm Isabella." Daniel looked up, surprised. Up close, she looked nothing like the untouchable women he'd seen on television. Her eyes were warm, her smile nervous, almost shy. "I'm Daniel," he replied, adjusting the umbrella. "And this is Emma." Emma beamed. "You're the waving lady." Isabella laughed, her cheeks flushing. "Yes. I guess I am." From that moment, the invisible line between their worlds began to blur. She started joining them for coffee after the bus left, sitting on that old bench, listening to Daniel's stories about life, about the struggles of raising a child alone after his wife passed away, about the simple joys of teaching Emma how to ride a bike or cooking pancakes on Sundays. Isabella never once mentioned her wealth. With Daniel, she didn't want to be a billionaire. She just wanted to be human. And for the first time in years, she felt truly seen, not for her last name, not for her fortune, but for her laughter, her kindness, her heart. One evening, months later, Daniel received devastating news: the shop where he worked was shutting down. The owner couldn't afford to keep it running. Daniel's chest tightened. No job meant no income. No income meant no home. He didn't know how to tell Emma. When Isabella saw the worry in his eyes the next morning, she asked gently, "What's wrong?" He sighed, staring at the ground. "Lost my job. I'll find something else, I have to. Emma needs me to be strong. She doesn't deserve to carry my burdens." Her heart ached. She wanted to tell him everything, that she could solve his problems in a heartbeat, that she could buy him a house, secure Emma's future, erase every worry he had. But she also feared the truth. Would he still see her the same way if he knew who she was? Or would she become another billionaire with a checkbook instead of a heart? That night, she made a decision. She couldn't sit back and watch him struggle. Quietly, without revealing her identity, she arranged for the local community center to expand their programs and hire a full-time maintenance manager. The offer was made to Daniel the very next day. "We've heard great things about you," the director said. "We think you'd be perfect for the job." Daniel was stunned. "But, how?" "Sometimes," the director smiled, "good people are noticed." The months that followed were filled with quiet miracles. Daniel found stability, Emma thrived, and Isabella became more and more a part of their world. They laughed together, shared meals, celebrated small victories. Slowly, gently, Isabella realized she wasn't just watching their lives, she was falling in love with them. With Daniel's resilience. With Emma's innocence. With the family she had always dreamed of but never found. It all came to a breaking point one evening when Emma, sitting between the two of them, looked up and said, "Daddy, can Isabella be part of our family? She makes us happy." Daniel froze, his heart pounding. He glanced at Isabella, whose eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I'd like that," she whispered. The truth had to come out eventually. One morning, Daniel stumbled across a news article. There she was, Isabella Monroe, billionaire, businesswoman, one of the richest women in America. His heart sank. He couldn't believe it. The woman who sat with him on the bench, who laughed with Emma, who made them feel less alone. She was a billionaire. That evening, he confronted her, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because with you, Daniel, I wasn't a billionaire. I was just, me. I was someone who could laugh, who could wave at a stranger and not feel like a prisoner in her own life. I was afraid that if you knew the truth, everything would change. Silence stretched between them. Then Daniel spoke softly, his voice breaking. You could have been anyone, Isabella. Rich or poor, it doesn't matter. What matters is, you showed up. You cared. And that's worth more than any fortune. Months later, under the golden light of a setting sun, they stood together at that same bus stop bench. Emma skipped circles around them, giggling, as Daniel reached for Isabella's hand. You know, he said with a smile, I never thought a wave could change my life. Isabella laughed through her tears, squeezing his hand. Neither did I. And there, on the corner of Willow Street, the billionaire who longed for love and the poor dad who lived for kindness found what neither wealth nor struggle alone could ever give them, a family. Because sometimes, the simplest gestures, a wave, a smile, a moment of kindness, carry the power to change everything.